What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chad Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and welcome into our weekly live show. We're going to be breaking down the latest around your favorite football team. We got injury news. We got a little Packers preview. We're going to dive into that whole shebang on today's show. But hey, before we dive into it, if you guys want the Vikings to beat the Packers this weekend and move the 4-0 on the NFL season, just give me a skull down below in the comments section. Already got a bunch of real ones in the building. Tom Lyles, Gray Warden, Blake Pearson, Eric Mott, Rocky, Monster, United Mexican States, not the United Mexican Skulls anymore. Blake Pearson, shout out to you. Joe in the live chat, shout out to you. Lily as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. But TTV saying, yo guys, Vikings fans, I probably can't watch the game this weekend because there's a hurricane tomorrow and probably this whole weekend. I live in Florida. Yeah, prayers up to everybody in the Tampa area, specifically big-time hurricane. I think it's Hurricane Helene, I believe it's called. But yeah, best of luck to you guys. Hopefully it's all safe down there. But Reen and Angie saying, can't wait for Sunday. It's a divisional game, so it'll be tough. But I'm worried because our team will fight until the end. Oh, I'm not worried. I'm not worried too much about this game. I actually love the Vikings. I haven't had this much confidence in a game this year up until this one. I think it's a tough matchup for the Packers, and especially if it is Jordan Love going to be playing, which it's looking like it. That's a tough ask for him coming off his sprained MCL, going against this Brian Flores defense. Like, you already got so much thoughts on just like processing the defense, diving in the post snap, and then on top of that, you're dealing with a sprained MCL. Like, it is going to be a tough matchup for Jordan Love. So my early score prediction, 27-17 Vikings. I think this offense, does just enough, and I think Matt LaFleur will be able to, scheme up just a couple of good drives where, Green Bay ends up scoring a couple of times, but I think the Vikings should be able to handle them. I still am very confident 27-17. But hey, you guys, pick a head coach for me. We got a lot of conversation on who is the best young offensive head coach in the National Football League, and there are two coaches in our division, one being our head coach, Kevin O'Connell, and the other one being Matt LaFleur. So you guys just pick a head coach for me. Give me an KOC for KOC, or give me an ML for Matt LaFleur. Obviously I would go Kevin O'Connell. I think he's the best young offensive play caller in the league right now. Honestly, after watching the Vikings film over the last couple of weeks, I think we talk about players getting a hot hand. I think you could also say the same thing about coordinators getting a hot hand, play callers getting a hot hand. And no coordinator may be more on fire than Kevin O'Connell in the entire league. He has been fantastic, specifically in that Texans game. I mean, the play designs he had were just beautiful. And a lot of those throws, Darnold played his ass off, but, it's mainly KOC dialing it up for him. So I understand LaFleur, he's a great head coach. He did a fantastic job with Malik Willis over the last 2 weeks as, Packers got to 2-0. Willis played good football. So, he's a great head coach as well. But, personally for me, I got to ride with, our head coach here in Kevin O'Connell. Richard saying knockout Connell. I like that. KO knockout Connell. Gary. What up, Gary? Saying sup, schoolmates. You said what? Oh, okay. Bet. Joe saying KOC, but to be fair, Green Bay was trash, but ML made them good. Yeah, I mean, Matt LaFleur has done a fantastic job with the Green Bay offense. I mean, the fact that they lost Jordan Love and you didn't really see them miss a beat. They actually changed their offense. They went way more run heavy with all those weapons they have on the outside. They really got downhill over the last 2 weeks and ran the football. And, I think that also speaks to the head coach. Not being like, oh, we need to run my system. I don't care who's in there. No, he adjusts to whatever players, whatever quarterback he had, and he ended up doing a great job. So all shout out to Matt LaFleur. I think he's great, but still, Kevin O'Connell for me is who I would be picking. But speaking about this game this weekend, ton of interesting matchups, tons of players that are going to need to have a good game for our Vikings to get a win. But you guys let me know, who is the biggest X factor this Sunday? Talking X factors versus the Green Bay Packers here. Let me know your thoughts down below. Is Nikki J. Ward saying, I don't think we will lose, but do you think the Packers defense will be a problem for Aaron Jones? I actually don't. I'm not that terrified of the Packers defense. I think the Vikings should be able to move the ball pretty easily. Obviously, you're going to Green Bay. You're going to a tough atmosphere. It's a divisional game, so the crowd will be in play. Lambeau, all 80,000 of those fans will be standing on their feet for a majority of that game. So I think the offense, I think we're going to see a smash mouth football coming our way for the Vikings. And, I do want to get this thought out there, and I'll explain it more in a second. But something I was thinking about with the Vikings' hot start, and I'm not trying to be negative here when I'm saying this, but it was just a thought I had. Now, I think the Vikings 3-0 start, biggest reason for that is the play callers on both sides. I think Brian Flores runs a very unique system, and, it's tough to game plan for it on a week-to-week basis. You only get 5 days, and if no team's been able to figure it out so far, it's just tough to game plan for them, and very similar for the offense. But why I'm maybe concerned for this in the future is, let's just say Matt LaFleur, the great offensive mind he is. What if he just finds a system, he finds a game plan that really exploits the Vikings defense, and it's replicated, or it's able to be replicated week to week? Then if you have an offensive coordinator who comes in for the following week, they just replicate that game plan. I can maybe see the Vikings falling into, a rough stretch for a couple months, or a couple weeks. But then again, Brian Flores would adjust, Kevin O'Connell would adjust, so I'm not too worried about it. But just a little thought I had on that one. But United saying, watch it, Richard and United going at it. United saying Dallas Turner. Garrett saying the Jets or Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, obviously, big-time X factor this weekend. Lyle's going Aaron Jones. Tattoo going, what's up, Patrick? It's been a while. Glad to have you back, man. Gray Warden saying, I think the Packers' D has been slightly overrated, mostly because they played one middle-of-the-road team and two garbage teams. I agree. They played a pretty good team in the Eagles, but the Colts and Titans, I mean, I'm not worried about them when the Vikings have to square off with them, later on in the year. Skylar, good question, using hashtag Vikings. Same with Blake Pearson. We'll get to those during our mailbag. Let's go. Shout out the live stream studio for that. But you guys let me know. Sam Darnold this weekend versus the Green Bay Packers. Predict his stat line for me. 1 for 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks last week. What do you think number 14, Sammy Dimes, is going to do this upcoming weekend? I think he's going to go 200. Actually, I'm gonna switch this up on you guys. I think he's going to throw for 179 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. I don't think the Vikings are going to be throwing the ball as much as the past weeks. So I think Darnold's stats are going to regress, but I think Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, that's going to be the story. Is going to be the rushing attack. I think they're going to try to get physical with the Packers. There's an article put out there that Kevin O'Connell wants to bully the bullies, and that's like the mindset they've been having this season, and it goes back to the physical training camp the Vikings have had, and they've looked physical throughout the first 3 weeks. I bet you they view the Packers in this divisional game as we can out-tough them, we can outman them, and that starts with the run game. So I think Darnold is going to have a more chill week in terms of just overall production, but I think the offense is going to be extremely, extremely productive this weekend. But we will be getting into a mailbag in about 35, 40 minutes or so. So if you guys got a question you want to ask me, hashtag Vikings, or you guys can send in a super chat, get your thoughts up on screen. But hashtag Vikings in the live chat helps us, pull it to our software as well. And then also we do have a new super chat graphic we're unveiling today. So if somebody wants to be the first person to send in a super chat and see the new graphic, it's pretty cool. Our CEO, Brett Scott, was working on it, and I thought it turned out great. So if you guys want to, send in a super chat or use hashtag Vikings. Get your questions up on screen for our mailbag. As Joe was saying, I think the run game is going to have a hard time, so Sam is going to have to step up. See, I'm kind of viewing it a little differently. I think the Packers secondary is great. Jair Alexander, Xavier McKinney's had 3 picks to start off this year. I think the Vikings' advantage here is getting downhill in the run game, letting the big fellas up front. Obviously linemen, they love run blocking more than they love pass blocking. They can get downhill. So I think we're going to see heavy dose of running this weekend, but, obviously Kevin O'Connell, whatever the game dictates the Vikings to do, that's what they would do. Full faith in this coaching staff, just having another week of having this football team play some great, great football. But coming up on today's show, we do have some great injury news around Jordan Addison and maybe some bad injury news around Jordan Love, as it is looking like he will be out there this Sunday versus our Minnesota Vikings. Now, I do want to go over 5 all-in trade targets. So, the trade deadline is still a little bit away, but I think the Vikings are going to be aggressive, and I don't know how aggressive, but I wanted to put together 5 all-in trade targets for a football team as, I could very well see Kwesi. You know, if the Vikings are 6-2, 7-1 at the trade deadline, maybe him just saying, screw it, let's go all in on this defense. Maybe they can get us to a Super Bowl this season. So we'll get into that, and then we'll also be getting into a mailbag. So again, hashtag Vikings, or you guys can super chat to get your thoughts up on screen. And then if you guys are ready to go, we're at 25 likes right now. Once we get the 30 likes, we'll dive into the injury news and injury report for this Vikings-Packers matchup. So hit that thumbs up icon. I'd appreciate it if you guys could. Just helps us get this stream out to more and more Vikings fans. And once we get to 30 likes, we will start today's show. As Sawyer Olsen saying, you're not going to run down the throat every single time on Cooper, and you're not going to throw the ball downfield. Packers are going to win by 2 scores. I disagree with you. I think it's a bad matchup for the Packers. I think the Vikings are rolling right now. I think they're the best team in football. I think they're playing the best. You know, I think they put the best tape out there, and, you know, I think all of us, and this is just natural, you have your preseason expectation just kind of clouding your judgment on a football team. Throw that out the window. Just look at what they did on paper or on film so far this year. And the Vikings have been the best. They're the 3rd highest scoring offense, 2nd best in scoring defense. They've been just dominating teams, and they also won against good football teams. Like, it's not like the Vikings had the Patriots, Panthers, and Raiders to start off the year. Like, they they had some good football teams out there. So, you know, playing the Texans and the Niners as well. So, you know, I got full faith in this team. You know, will definitely be a good matchup. But Steph saying Sunday I'll be surrounded by Packers backers. God help me. Steph, that's tough. That's tough. Hopefully you can get around some Vikings fans for that. But, you know, appreciate you tuning in, Steph. Same with the Reen. Saying whatever the team see in the film room, we will use against the Packers. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, whatever Brian Flores, Kevin O'Connell that they've seen on film over the last couple of weeks, if they view they can take advantage of that, they will do so. Like, whatever, you know, the Vikings beat the Packers because Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores already know that answer. Now we'll see if the players can go out there and execute that. But Nikki saying if we do lose, which we won't, I'll still be happy that we're 3-1. 100%. And that's yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Steph. Or Nikki, my bad. Saying if we lose, which we won't, yeah, still be happy with 3-1. That's why that start was so big. You know, you got your toughest part of your schedule out of the way with the Texans and the Niners. So, you know, hopefully they're they'll go to 4-0, and then if you just play 500 football the rest of the year, you know, you're winning 10, 11 games. Shout out to Garrett Russborough, sending a $2 super chat, saying the Packers are overrated, defense is average. Yeah, I mean, their defense is average, probably a little bit above average, probably say around 10th, 11th, 12th best in the league. Their offense, though, it's, you know, with Malik Willis, I think they're, you know, yeah, shout out to you, Garrett. Like, without Malik Willis, I think, like, their peak as an offense is not as high with Jordan Love, but with Matt LaFleur, like, their floor for what they're going to do on a week-to-week basis is extremely high. Now, Jordan Love gives them that, you know, superstar quarterback that could take them from the 12th best offense to, let's just say, the 3rd, 4th best offense in the league on a week-to-week basis. So, Lily saying also who are Packer backers, just Packers fans. That's what he was getting at there. Sawyer saying over/under 2.5 INTs for Sam Darnold. Well, are you talking about on the whole year? Because he's only thrown 2 so far. Again, get those preseason expectations of Sam Darnold and this Vikings team out of your head, man. Shout out to Rocky. Addison should be ready to go. We're actually going to dive into that here shortly. So let's dive into it. If you guys are ready to go, let's do it. Yeah. Tom Wiles saying, does Aaron Jones get over 100 rushing yards? I'm thinking he will. I think it's going to be a massive Aaron Jones game. You know, I think revenge games are a real thing. It's not just something that, like, we say. I think that's something that's talked about in the locker room, talked about game planning. Yeah, big revenge game. Plus, this isn't like a thing where, you know, the Packers just let him go. Like, they also paid another running back in free agency big money that they could have gave him. But they went with Josh Jacobs, who had a good year, but you know, I think Aaron Jones is a better running back, and I think the Vikings, you know, want to make that clear this weekend. But Tang Yang, shout out to you, $5 super chat. We'll get that up on screen here in a sec. But saying, I want KOC to call a Cunningham special with Darnold. Interesting. A Cunningham special saying, hand the ball off, and Jones pitch it back to Sam for a deep ball to JJ would be nice to see it. If everybody could, give me a skull Tang in the live chat. So a little flea flicker is what you're saying, Tang Yang. I would like it. Again, if the defense, if that's out there on film, I'm sure KOC, will have that in the bag. But I would love it. Let's just say you're pounding the rock with Aaron Jones throughout the first 3 quarters. Maybe it's a below 17-10 ball game. Vikings get the football, and it's just not play action. It's just a flea flicker deep shot to Justin Jefferson. I would love it, man. I would love it. Yeah, let's get it. Joe saying Jordan Love is overrated, but the defense is still going to have to win this game. Yeah, I'm with it. Defense is going to need to show up. No matter what your thoughts are on Jordan Love, Malik Willis, defense is going to have to play well for the Vikings this weekend. But let's dive into it. I do want to talk about Brian Flores and that defense as a whole, and also some injury news. Don't worry about the live chat. Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. All right, let's dive into it. We got some good news and we got some bad news coming from the injury report ahead of this Week 4 matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers. As it's looking like star wide receiver Jordan Addison should be out there this Sunday. And then also on the second half of today's show, want to do a little film study on Brian Flores and this defense and what specifically makes it special, because the story of the NFL season so far is how creative and how unique that defense is. So I want to hop into the film room and show you guys that on the later half of today's show. But before we dive into that, guys, first off, I just want to say thank you so much. I put out a ridiculous goal on the channel. Can we hit 33K before Sunday? I thought this had no chance to do so, but on yesterday's show, we picked up 216 subs, and we are still about a half a week away. So if you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Help us reach 33K for Aaron Jones. Need 1.5 more thousand of you guys to hit that subscribe button. So this is the bad news, I guess, that the Vikings are getting, but you could also view this as good news, as Jordan Love is expected to play this Sunday versus the Packers, even if he is less than 100%. So coming in from the Purple Persuasion podcast on Twitter, great follow if you guys haven't already, but he aggregated what I believe it was Ian Rappaport had to say, as he said, Love is back at practice, and he is willing to play than less than 100%. Certainly makes sense he'll be out there this week against the Vikings. Now, we have heard this has been the target date for Jordan Love, and with him being back at practice, I think is no doubt he will be the starting quarterback. Now, the Packers did have Malik Willis starting for this football team over the last couple of weeks, and he was good, but it is a different type of offense. Now, when Malik Willis is under center, it's more downhill. They're handing the ball off to Aaron Jones. They're getting Malik Willis going in the run game as well, as he's gone over 50 yards over the last 2 weeks. And, I will give credit to Matt LaFleur where it is due. He had Malik Willis playing some of the best football of his career. But in terms of Jordan Love, now he did only start one game so far. It was against the Eagles in Brazil, but he was pretty good. Completion percentage, he was a little inaccurate that game, missed some easy ones. But again, he was still solid at 50%. Yards per attempt was at 7.6. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and his big-time throw percentage was at 5.1, and his turnover-worthy throw percentage was at 4.9. But when you're talking about the Packers and just their overall playmakers they have on the outside, it is so different of how they utilize these guys with comparing who's under center. Now, when it's Malik Willis, it's more of the tight ends. Like, they got Luke Musgrave, Josh Jacobs. He's getting involved, obviously. But when it's Jordan Love, they use all 4 of these wide receivers. Now, I think in total, the Packers have the deepest and most talented wide receiver room in the NFL. Now, do they have the top-end talent like us Vikings have with Jefferson and Addison? No, but they got 4 wide receivers that they absolutely love. And this has been a big reason why the Packers offense has been so good this season. Ranking top 5 in yards per game. Doesn't matter who's in at quarterback. And the biggest number here is their rushing yards per game. Now, 204 rushing yards per game. Ranks first in the NFL right now. Obviously, that is with Malik Willis, under center, being that more dual threat quarterback. But, Matt LaFleur, give him credit, man. They are the 6th highest scoring offense in the league at 25 points per game with a guy like Malik Willis, who was traded for a 7th round pick just before the season started. But I do just want to have this random thought out there. Now, this is not being me being negative or me thinking the Vikings are going to collapse and this 3-0 start is a fluke. But I think the biggest reason for this Vikings 3-0 start is how unique and how just creative this defense is, ran by Brian Flores. Now, what I am concerned about is what if a guy like Matt LaFleur, who is a great offensive mind, what if he figures out a game plan to, defeat this defense, and it gives his quarterback easy reads, and he's able to really, dink and dunk his way into having a successful day? And then what if that game plan can get replicated? And then it's the week after it. Then the New York Jets are running that. Then the Lions and the Rams the weeks after. Like, there are some good offensive coordinators coming up where if one of them figures it out, maybe this whole defense could start struggling. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. And even if that would, LaFleur, let's just say the Packers, it's a disaster game for the Vikings, and, they end up gashing this defense. I'm sure Flores will adjust to it and just completely change what they're doing from a week-to-week basis. But, hey, just a random thought I had. But, let's get into some positive news here. Alec Lewis tweeted this out a couple days ago, saying head coach Kevin O'Connell said wide receiver Jordan Addison, Ivan Pace, and Dallas Turner are all day-to-day this week, but he did sound optimistic on all. And then Kevin O'Connell actually talked earlier today, and Ian Rappaport tweeted out saying head coach Kevin O'Connell tells reporters that wide receiver Jordan Addison, dealing with that ankle injury, will practice likely limited capacity today, and he is hopeful he can play Sunday. So I expect Jordan Addison to be out there, and I expect this whole wide receiver room to be fully healthy. Now, Naylor has done a fantastic job filling in for Jordan Addison. He has found the end zone in 3 games. He has been truly, electric with the football in his hands, going over 100 yards, 15.1 yards per catch. And, obviously he was getting, those wide receiver 2 looks. It's only going to get easier for him at that wide receiver 3 spot. Now, I think Naylor is going to be used more as a gadget guy with Addison back. Addison and Jefferson will obviously be the focal points of this offense, but you will see plays in the red zone. You will see screens. Whatever way Kevin O'Connell can get him the football, he will do just that. Now, with having Ivan Pace back, this is huge for this group. Now, obviously, Hill played great filling in for Pace this past week, had that interception, should have had that forced fumble, but they ended up calling it back. But having Pace back is just huge for, this run game, as the Packers have a great rushing offense. And you add Pace next to Blake Cashman, who Cashman is having a career best year in the NFL. I mean, the numbers don't lie for him. He flies around the football field, 7 tackles, has a sack on the year, as already has a couple PBUs as well. But PFF has loved what he's done, grading him out as a 78.1 overall coverage grade. Fantastic as well at 80.7. And, it just kind of gets me this thought. Like, the Vikings 3-0 start, we can talk about it just on the field. We can talk about, how great the coaching staff has been and, all of that. But what makes this team dangerous is that they weren't even fully healthy. And it's not like they just were missing a left guard or missing a backup tight end. No, you were missing some of the better players on your football team, and TJ Hawkinson and a guy like Jordan Addison, even Ivan Pace, Dallas Turner. You're missing some of the key parts of this roster, and you were still able to get the 3-0. This team is dangerous. Once they get fully healthy, I mean, they got one of the best rosters top to bottom in the entire National Football League, and you combine that with the elite coaching staff, expectation should be at an all-time high for us Vikings fans. But speaking about the game this weekend, get your score predictions down below for me. Predict the score, Vikings versus Packers. I'm going to make this the pinned comment on today's show. So if YouTube, they're going to throw an ad break your way right now. Sit back, let it play, and answer today's pinned comment of your score predictions for this Week 4 matchup. Now, my score prediction, I got the Vikings taking it 27-17. In a pretty easy victory. Now, I think the Vikings defense is kind of my biggest question mark heading into this game. And if that's my biggest question mark, I think it's going to be okay for the Vikings. But, I don't think the defense will have a Niners-Texans-esque performance, as I do think having that home crowd has been so big for them. So going on the road may present more challenges. But, I'm not a big believer in this Packers defense. And I am a big believer in Kevin O'Connell and crew. So I got the Vikings to win in 27-17. Now, I do want to close today's show out talking about what makes Brian Flores' defensive scheme so special? Like, why have the Vikings been so successful so far this season? And the number one reason for that is it's just unique. Like, there is no team in the NFL that runs even a similar style of defense to what the Vikings do. Now, I do want to hop into some film and just talk about, really what is the bread and butter of this defense. And we can start off with this. So this is just a play from the 49ers game where, typical 3rd and 5, this is the bread and butter where you have 7 guys lined up on the line of scrimmage, and then you get to right after the ball is snapped right here, then only 4 guys come. Now keep this in mind. This is the base. This is the bread and butter. This is what he likes to do on any given play. Now we get to the Texans game. One of the first drives of the game following the interception. It is 3rd and 8, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys up lined on the line of scrimmage. Now if you're the Texans offense right here, what are you reading? This is probably man coverage. These guys are all lined up across, from their wide receivers. So, you would assume this is man, and that's what it is. Once the ball is snapped, you are bringing everybody, and Cam Bynum right here, the 8th rusher, is just either manned up on the tight end once he tries to evade out after chipping Jonathan Grenard, or the running back coming out of the backfield. But, what is so special about what the Vikings defense is doing here, they could have easily gone into a different coverage. You had these 3 guys in man-to-man, but this could have easily gone back in the cover 2. Gilmore could have came up. Middle guy could have went back to a cover 2. Cam Bynum down here, he flares out to a cover 2, and then he could add get Van Ginkel in the flat over here. That's what makes it so challenging. Now you get to this 3rd and 11 later on in the game. What makes this so special? Well, you have Van Ginkel and Blake Cashman lined up in the A-gaps with Jihad Ward, and then I think that's Patrick Jones at the top of your screen right there. So you got 4 guys right here lined over 3 offensive linemen, and then you got Jonathan Grenard here at the bottom. He's just one-on-one with the tackle. So you're really setting this defense up to be successful where Grenard's one-on-one. He wins that matchup. You're getting home on 3rd and 11, but then the ball is snapped on this play, and it completely changes. Van Ginkel drops back with Cashman, and then it's only Cashman ends up going. Van Ginkel drops back. Jihad Ward's trying to make a play in there. Patrick Jones off the edge. Jonathan Grenard here. And the Vikings just drop back into just some stock coverage. Now this play, 3rd and 10, late in the first half. Kind of tough to see here, but this was the Vikings just going super vanilla. They're in a quarters look here where they just have 4 deep halves and they only end up rushing 3. It just kind of speaks to the point that, you can prepare for that bread and butter, the 7-8 guys lined up on the line of scrimmage. But then Brian Flores even throws in another wrinkle where he just is saying, hey, we're just going to rush 3, some stock coverage on a 3rd and long, and you got to figure it out. So I think this defense is special. It's tough to prepare for. And, another reason why it's working is, you are kind of challenging these quarterbacks to process post-snap. Now, in the modern day NFL, we really know this, teams will use emotion to figure out, if the team's in man or zone. But with the Vikings, it doesn't really work because let's just say they are in man and you got the guys lined up on the line of scrimmage. If you motion a guy, they're just going to adjust it. They'll communicate, then he's taking him, but they're not really giving away anything. And if you're not giving away anything and you run that same motion and they're in zone, you're just going to have no idea until the ball is snapped. So you just think about it as a quarterback. You're sitting there. You're like, okay, I have no idea what they're in. Ball snap. Now I see the coverage. Now I got to think about where I want to go. And then with the pass rush getting home so fast, it just has allowed the Vikings to be number 1 in sacks so far. But I'll get into my last reason here in a second, but do want to tell you guys about a cool deal we have going on right now. And you guys can get a Vikings hoodie up to 50% off by clicking this link, chatsports.com/Vikings hoodie. Link for that is in the comments and description of today's show. But check it out, chatsports.com/Vikings hoodie. If you guys click that link, get some Vikings merch today. Now, another big reason why I think it's working is, I think we're in a different day and age of the NFL quarterback where a lot of these guys are the Anthony Richardsons, they're the Will Levises, they're the Kyler Murrays, where maybe not necessarily, processing it is their best attribute. They're mainly relying on their physical tools. I'll just use Anthony Richardson. He's a phenomenal athlete. Has he been good at the quarterback position so far this year? No. And why is that? Because he can't process. He can't read defenses. He can't take the easy checkdowns. And that's why you add that on top of what Flores does. There's a big reason why these quarterbacks have been struggling. But I do want to close today's show out with this. Show Brian Flores some love down below in the comment section. Give me a skull flow. As hopefully he's the defensive coordinator for this football team for a very long time. Also, my Twitter, @PatSieps. Give me a follow over there. I'll give you guys a follow back. But thank you guys so much for watching today's show. See you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes. All right, you guys predict the score for me. Vikings-Packers this weekend. Shout out to Reen, Eric, Joe, Tom, Miles in the chat. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that breakdown of Flores' defense. Hopefully it was pretty digestible for you guys. As Wasazy is saying Skull Flow. United Mexican States saying 21-17 win. But, man, I just want everybody to, like, you know, it's tough to put yourself in, like, a quarterback's mind, but – man, I couldn't even imagine trying to, you know, just decipher what the Vikings defense is trying to do on a play-to-play basis. And plus, they have been so good against the run this year. They're second in the league. Like, you're in 3rd and 5. You're in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 all the damn time. Just because you can't run the ball, it's just got to be so challenging to go against that unit. So, you know, all types of love for Flores and what he's done. But the Grey Warden saying, I think the Vikes win 42-17, 3 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 pick six. And also believe the Vikings defense gets 4 sacks and 3 total INTs. Grey Warden, I wish your predictions for the game came true every single week. Even though you've been pretty spot on so far, I would love a shellacking of the Packers this weekend. But mailbag coming up in about 15, 20 minutes or so. So if you guys got a question, use hashtag Vikings in the live chat or super chat. We do have a new little super chat software graphic for you guys. If you guys want to test it out, get your thoughts up on screen. Hit that dollar icon at the bottom of the live chat, or just use hashtag Vikings. Either works there. Sweet. Sweet, yeah. Just checking something. We'll dive into the show here in a sec. Some trade targets for the Vikings if they do want to get all in for this season. Gotcha. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah, no, I'm just looking at something. Alrighty. Yeah, let's dive into it. Alrighty. Yeah, let's dive into it. We're getting into some all-in trade targets and also top matchups to watch this weekend. Could the Vikings go all in at this year's NFL trade deadline? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about on the first half of today's show. I got 5 big-time players where if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah traded for them, we would legitimately be talking Super Bowl for the rest of the season. Then also top matchups to watch. Vikings, Packers, what am I looking forward to in this Week 4 matchup? But my name is Patrick Siepman, and before we dive into that, if you guys want the Vikings to beat the Packers and move the 4-0 on the season, all you guys got to do is hit that thumbs up icon. Don't jinx this Vikings football team. I put the goal on today's show as 1,000 likes. I think we can knock this out of the park. So if you guys want the Vikes to beat the Packers, hit that thumbs up icon. So the number 1 all-in trade target for the Minnesota Vikings, we're going to start off here with Marshon Lattimore. Now, this isn't in order in terms of who I would trade for. I'll give you guys my thoughts on that, you know, as the show goes on. But let's just start off with Lattimore here. Now, Lattimore, he's a great cornerback, but he does come with a lot of baggage. And his baggage is the injuries and the contract. And if you guys see the games played over the last 2 years before this one, 2023, 10 games played. 2022, only 7 games played. So he's been in and out of the lineup due to the injuries, and he hasn't been really able to, you know, stay healthy for the Saints defense. And, you know, plus the kicker with Lattimore is his contract. The contract's massive. Now, the cap hit's not terrible for this year. Like, I'll take that. You're paying a premium price for a premium position, $14.6 million, but then the cap hit in 2025 and then in 2026 of 31 and then $28 million. I'm not a fan of that. I don't think the Vikings, need to overpay for an aging, injury-prone quarter or a cornerback. And I was originally saying I would be all in on Lattimore, get him to the Minnesota Vikings, but with Byron Murphy and Stephon Gilmore playing the way they are, like I don't think it's necessarily that you go all in on 2024, even though his cap number is low. But then in 25, he's a year older. You're going to pay him $31 million. It just seems like a bad contract, waiting to happen for this football team and a bad problem. But Jeremy Fowler actually connected the Vikings to a Marshon Lattimore trade, and this is the trade idea he threw out there, and I just think it's absolutely ludicrous. But it is the Vikings sending New Orleans a 2026 third-round pick, which, again, a third-round pick for a guy like Lattimore. On paper, it sounds great, but the injury history and the contract is a big reason why I say no. And plus, other guys in this cornerback room for the Vikings playing good football. You don't need to overpay or get desperate for a guy like this. Now, Byron Murphy's been great. Stephon Gilmore's been great. And even Shaq Griffin's been great. But you still got a guy like Mekhi Blackmon who is going to recover this whole year with that torn ACL, but he should be back next year. Even Caleb Evans. I'd rather bank on a guy like that, developing instead of giving $32 million to a guy like Lattimore. And that's why I say this. I'm only giving up a 6th-round pick max for Lattimore. If the Saints really want to get rid of him that bad, then I'm sure, the Vikings cap gurus can figure it out where the contract isn't terrible. But like Lattimore as a player, I'd only give up a 6th-round pick for him max. But let's get into the second one here. Big fella. One of my favorite players in the National Football League that's not on the Minnesota Vikings. Dexter Lawrence, who is still only 26 years old, but he is a monster in the interior. He's had a great start to this season as he's already gotten up to 3 sacks on the year, 10 tackles, and he dominated the Vikings in that season opener, just absolutely ragdolling Ed Ingram over and over again, and he's been consistent throughout his NFL career. I mean, he's played in majority of the games, always getting pressure from the interior of that defensive line, which is so valuable nowadays in the NFL. And his contract for getting the best defensive lineman in the league is not terrible at all. Like, Dexter Lawrence is a guy where, if we're talking about truly going all in on someone, I really don't think there is any concern where it's like, oh, if you go all in on him and then he heads to your football team, he might not be the same guy. I think if we got him in here, he would be better with the Vikings. He would be more productive, and I think you really feel his dominance. But 14.5 this year, 24 the next, 27 and 26, and then 27, he's only making $26.6 million. Now, if I could trade for literally probably any player in the NFL, like besides a quarterback, it actually might be Dexter Lawrence for me. Maybe a guy like Quentin Nelson, an elite interior offensive lineman, but I would go all in on Dexter Lawrence. The only problem is here, I don't think the Giants are going to trade him. Even if the Giants don't win another game before the deadline, I think they view him as like that blue chip, that, foundational piece for this team. And, the Vikings defensive line's been good this year. Like, shout out to Harrison Phillips, shout out to Jerry Tillery. Like, they've been pretty good, but they don't have the superstar talent that Dexter Lawrence does. Like, even a guy like Harrison Phillips, who is very, very good, he just doesn't have that, superstar ability, and that's what Dexter Lawrence brings. But another defensive lineman I would be all in on. How about Jeffrey Simmons? Now, I think this is the more likely version or more likely player that the Vikings could trade for if they are looking to go all in at the defensive line spot. He is still only 27 years old, but with the Titans, awful start to the year. Will Levis being terrible. This is the most realistic all-in option for this team. Now, Jeffrey Simmons, very similar to Dexter Lawrence, can get pressure from the interior, can take on double teams that can open up rushing lanes for guys like Pace and Cashman here. But, I just don't know if the Titans would actually get off him because he has been so productive for him. For that football team over the last couple of years. Just been very consistent, has been fairly healthy for Tennessee. And honestly, his contract is, not that bad. Like, when you're talking about trading for these guys, contract matters because, I think people just are like, oh, we're giving up a second for a player. No, you're also giving up a second for that player and his contract. But this would allow the Titans to move off this deal. $22 million next year, 25 the year after, 28 and 27. So, maybe Tennessee, they want to get their money somewhere else, and, they want to give Jeffrey Simmons a chance to go compete for a Super Bowl this season. I'll tell you what, you add Jeffrey Simmons to this defense, you got one of the better defenses of all time. But let's talk about Kevin Dotson here. Now, Rams did sign him this offseason to a pretty big deal, but he is an offensive guard, which I do know is a huge need for our Minnesota Vikings. But Ed Ingram has been better, and his contract's not bad. Like, you would be trading for a guy who only in 2025 would be making 17.9, 26 to 17.4. But this would give the Vikings legitimately one of the better offensive lines in the league. You would have Blake Brendel, great left guard, Kevin Dotson, great right guard, and then two great tackles in Darisaw and Brian O'Neill. And then this also, like, then there's no debate on Dalton Risner coming back. Then he just stays as the, backup interior offensive lineman. So maybe Sean McVay throws Kevin O'Connell a bone and says, you know what, you're having a good year. We're off to a bad start. Here you go, Kevin Dotson, for a second-round pick. I'd do it. Again, not too sure if the Rams would make that move. But last one we'll talk about, Davante Adams. Now, I'll just say this off the jump. Davante Adams is a great player, fantastic, but there's just no need for him on this football team. The Vikings receivers have been awesome this year, and especially with Jordan Addison getting back. Like, you're going to have Jordan Addison be your wide receiver 3. The only reason I included him in this is because his name has been floated the most in NFL trade rumors over the last couple of weeks. But, this receiver room is great. Naylor's been great. Addison's awesome. You obviously know Jefferson. So where would the need be for Davante Adams? There really is none. So, those are 5 players that I want the Vikings to trade for. But, you guys just give me one. Name a player you want the Vikings to trade for. I'll make this the pinned comment on today's video. So if YouTube throws an ad break your way, sit back, let it play, and answer this question of name any player you want the Vikings to trade for. Now, coming up next, we're going to be talking about my top matchups I'm watching versus the Green Bay Packers this weekend. But before we dive into that, I do want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and that is actually BetUS. Now, if you guys plug in promo code CHAT125 when you're making your initial deposit, we will match it up to 125%. So if you put in $100, we'll give you guys $125 free to play with. But you guys just have to plug in that promo code CHAT125 when you guys are making your first deposit at BetUS. Now let's talk about my top matchup to watch here. Justin Jefferson versus Jaire Alexander. Now, there's a little talk going around that Jaire Alexander has Justin Jefferson's number. Now, if you look at the numbers that Jefferson has had against the Green Bay Packers in his NFL career, they are definitely down a little bit by his standard. Like, he is still having great games. Like, 767 yards per game against the Packers in his career is awesome. But when Jefferson's a guy that averages, 98 plus yards per game, yeah, those numbers are down. But he did kill him a couple years ago when he went for over 180 yards in the opener, had 2 touchdowns. He was awesome, man. Jaire is a great corner. I do think, the Packers do a good job of getting physical with Jefferson, getting off the line of scrimmage. If there's any way to get a receiver out of his game, it is getting physical with him, trying to get under his skin a little bit. And plus Jaire, we know the viral play of him hitting the gritty on Justin Jefferson and that. So, I think Jaire is definitely his toughest matchup, but I think Jefferson's going to take this personal this weekend and really try to, exploit number 23 of the Green Bay Packers. But number 2 for me, I got Kevin O'Connell versus Matt LaFleur, as I think this is, a coaching matchup that we will see in the division for the next 10 years. I think these two are the 2 best young offensive head coaches in the National Football League. What LaFleur has done with Malik Willis over the last 2 weeks has been special. And then, obviously us Vikings fans know how good Kevin O'Connell has been, just play design, getting his players the ball in great spots. They have both been fantastic. So just watching these two, see the wrinkles they're both adding this week, it is just going to be fun to watch. It's going to be beautiful football. And, the last 3 weeks for the Vikings, KOC versus Shanahan, KOC versus D'Amico Ryans, now KOC versus LaFleur, and then, next week versus Saleh, and then you got, Dan Campbell, then you got Sean McVay. There are a ton of great coaching matchups for this Vikings team coming up. But KOC versus LaFleur, it's going to be interesting to see who wins that one. Now, number 3 for me, I got the Vikings front 7 versus the Packers running game. Now, if there is any concern I have about this defense, even though they have been fantastic so far this year, it is stopping the rushing attack for the Green Bay Packers. Now, it is first in the National Football League, over 200-plus rushing yards per game. They have been awesome, and a lot of that has been on the back of Josh Jacobs, who was a massive pickup for them this season. He's already gone for over 275 yards this year. 20-plus carries in each of the first 3 games, and he's been that workhorse. They've been giving him the ball a whole lot, and that's a big reason why he's been averaging 4.5 yards per carry. Great offensive line, just grit and grind there for the Packers. So Harrison Phillips, looking at you. Johnson, Bullard, Jerry Tillery, got to be able to stop the run this Sunday. Now, last one for me is Aaron Jones versus everybody. Aaron Jones versus the whole state of Wisconsin this weekend. As, you know, we know this is a revenge game, but I don't think this is just a typical revenge game for Aaron Jones. Now, you know, he's off to a great start this year, 5.4 yards per carry. He's been running the football really well, but, you know, the thing about Jones is, like, it's not like the Packers said, we're not going to pay the running back position. We got to let you go. That's a different type of revenge game. But in this situation, it was, we're going to let you go. We're going to go give big money to another running back in free agency, and we're just going to say, screw you to you. So I think Aaron Jones, he's going to be fired up, and he's off to a great start, and the advanced numbers show that. I mean, he's already forced 11 missed tackles, has 6 10-plus yard runs. His rushing yards over expected is actually at 52 yards total this season, which is awesome. I think that's like 6th in the entire league. And same thing with rushing yards over expected per attempt is at 1.24. Again, very high up there in the rankings throughout the whole league. But let's wrap up today's show by showing Aaron Jones some love. Type those 33s. Type his jersey number as, I think number 33 is setting himself up to have a big day back home in Green Bay. Now, if you guys want to give me a follow on Twitter, that's a handle right there, at Pat Sieps. Give me a follow over there, and I'll give you guys a follow right back. But see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes. Alrighty. If you guys got a question, hashtag Viking. Shout out to Erica Point in the chat, saying Skol 33. Barbera saying 33. Tom Miles, shout out to you. Wazazy typing 33. Appreciate it. Tang Yang saying first play of the game for the Vikings. Flea Flicker, do a KOC. I'd love that. Rick saying they don't run the offense through Addison or Hawkinson. Talking about the Vikes. I mean, they last year, I mean, it's obviously ran through Jefferson, but like the next layer of that, like, is Addison and Hawkinson. Because you give all the attention to Jefferson, that's the first thing defenses are taking away. Then that's one-on-one for Addison. Then you take that away, then it's one-on-one for Hawkinson. And there's no linebacker in the league that can't keep up with them. Jaden Reed could ruin the game. Jaden Reed's a hell of a player. He killed us last year. Super speedy guy, but again, this is a different type of Vikings defense, man. But we're going to be diving into the mailbag. We're also going to start it off talking about what I think could be the biggest concern this weekend against the Green Bay Packers. So hashtag Vikings or Super Chat. If they come in while we're making the cut, we'll get them up on screen if it's a Super Chat. But appreciate you guys tuning in for our live show this week. Going to be a ton of fun. You said what? Okay, bet. What's up, United? How you doing? Tom Lyle saying F the Cheesehead. Shout out to you, Tom. Vang Bros Outdoors saying 33. Yes, sir. Shout out to you, man. Let's go. Joe saying if Sam does not work out, what do we do? Because let's be real, J.J. McCarthy is cooked. J.J. McCarthy is not cooked, and Sam Darnold will work out, so we won't need to talk about that. Garrett Russborough saying FGB. Let's go. All right, let's dive into it, though. Vikings' biggest issue this Sunday. Let's do it. Are the Vikings in big trouble this Sunday? We're going to be talking about it on today's show, as even though I think the Vikings will get a victory this Sunday in Lambeau Field, I do think if the Packers just do a couple things, then maybe they could take advantage of this Vikings team. And then later on today's show, we got a mailbag, and it is one of my favorite things we do here at Chat Sports, where I answer questions straight from our subscribers. So we'll dive into that in the second half of today's show. But before we do so, guys, if you guys want the Vikings to beat the Packers, type those skulls down below in the comments section. Even though the game is not at US Bank Stadium this weekend, I want it to look like US Bank Stadium in the live chat. Give me those skulls down below. Whoever comments the most skulls, by the way, I should give you a shout out on our watch party this Sunday. So my biggest concern with the Vikings traveling to Lambeau Field is that the Packers are able to dominate the trenches. Now, Kevin O'Connell and this Vikings team, they have clearly said this season they're going to be more physical. And it started at training camp with the Vikings letting these guys hit, with Kevin O'Connell playing the starters a little bit more in preseason. But still, I still think there's this narrative that maybe the Vikings are more of a finesse team where the Packers are more of a physical get downhill team. Now, I will say I do have the Vikings winning this football game. I think they're going to take, full advantage of this, mediocre Packers defense. But, I had a lot of fans saying, oh, you're giving too much love to the Texans. I did a very similar video last week. But I just want to talk about where the Vikings could get beat because I'm sure Kevin O'Connell and the crew are having these same conversations. Now, it starts with the rushing defense, as the Packers are the league's best rushing offense heading into this week, averaging 204 yards per game, which is first in the NFL, and they just rely on their new big bruising back, Aaron Jones, giving them 20-plus carries a game so far, going for 278 yards. They're really using him as that workhorse back with no A.J. Dillon and obviously no Aaron Jones anymore. But it's not like he's had these big plays. It's just been 3, 4, 5, 6 yards a carry, hence why it's came to average out at 4.5 yards a clip. But, the Vikings rush defense, they have been good. So I will give them their credit there where it's not like, Vikings are the 15th ranked rushing defense and you're going against the best. Like, no, this is strength for strength this weekend. And if you're able to get the Packers in 3rd and long, Jordan Love coming off a sprained MCL with what Brian Flores likes to do in those positions, it should be a long day for the Packers offense if the Vikings can take away that running game. Now, how can you match their physicality when you're on offense? Well, you get the ball to these two guys, Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. Now, Aaron Jones, I was calling him the most underrated free agent signing before the year, and I will stay calling him that, as I think he has changed life for this Vikings offense because now it's not, all about Justin Jefferson. You got to count for number 33 as well, and 100 receiving yards, 230 rushing yards. He's been awesome. Then even his backup, Ty Chandler, like he had that awesome game against the Niners when he went for over 80 yards, but still him averaging 4.5 yards per carry is fantastic. Now, even the advanced numbers for Jones are great this year. Rushing yards over expected, my favorite stat when evaluating running backs. He's plus 52. That's top 6 in the National Football League. Rushing yards over expected per attempt, top 7 in the league at 1.24, 10-plus yard runs, 6, and missed tackles forced at 11. He's been one of the better backs in the league. That's why my prediction for this offense this week, I think Kevin O'Connell's game plan is all going to be about the run game. I think he wants to run the ball 40-plus times, if not 50-plus times against the Green Bay Packers. I think that's what his game plan is going to be, understanding that the Packers do have some dogs in that secondary. They got Xavier McKinney. They got Jair Alexander. Where can you take advantage? Run straight at Kenny Clark, straight at Preston Smith, straight at whoever that one edge is that they have. But you guys know what I'm talking about. But just run straight at those guys, get downhill, play physical football. And I think there is no doubt that the Vikings will be celebrating a 4th straight victory Monday. 4-0. It could happen. You just got to match up physicality and get a little tougher in the trenches, and I think we'll be all right. But, another big storyline heading into Sunday's game is who's the better head coach, Kevin O'Connell or Matt LaFleur? Well, if you think it's KOC, type it KOC. But if you're riding with the Packers head coach, give me an ML down below in the comments section. I'll make this a pinned comment on today's show. So if YouTube throws an ad break your way, sit back, let it play, and answer today's pinned comment of picking who the better head coach is between Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur. Now, first question in on our mailbag coming in from Garrett Russborough saying Packers are overrated, defense is average. Now, yeah, this is not an elite Packers defense by any means, but they are good. Like, it's not just a defense where it's like the Commanders or, the Panthers where you can going into that game, you're like, yeah, Vikings offense should be able to roll. You're still going to have to go out there and execute, but I think with the run game, running hard this weekend sets up the play action for Jefferson. And if you get Addison back, like Addison cooked this Packers team last year. He will do even better this year with Justin Jefferson in the lineup. So, Garrett, I appreciate you. Shout out to you. Tang Yang coming in saying, I want KOC to call a Cunningham special with Darnold, hand the ball off, and Jones pitch it back to Sam for a deep ball to JJ. Would be nice to see it. So Tang Yang's calling for a flea flicker this Sunday. Yeah, I'd be all in on it. It would definitely be very cool. Vikings are running the ball hard all game. get it to Aaron Jones. He pitches it back to Darnold, and we're setting it up for the deep shot to Jefferson in Lambeau. Maybe that's a little fourth quarter play call, but Tang Yang, I'll remember this, and if this Sunday this comes to fruition, I'll give you some love on a future show. But we'll get to more questions here in a second, but quickly want to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and you guys can get some Vikings hoodies up to 50% off if you check out this link, chatsports.com/Vikings hoodie. Link for that is in the comments and description of today's show, but check them out if you guys want to get some more Vikings merch in your life. Blake Pearson saying updates on Ivan Pace, Jordan Addison, and Dallas Turner. Still waiting for the injury reports to come out for the week, as I do have the one from Wednesday's practice. But Kevin O'Connell did say earlier this week that he expects all of them to be good to go. But just from Wednesday, Garrett Bradbury, DNP, that's just a rest day. Ivan Pace did not practice, but Sam Darnold did participate in full, so he'll be out there. But Turner, Oliver, Hill, Bullard, and Addison all limited. But in terms of those three guys, Pace questionable, I would say, but I think Addison and Turner will both be ready to go. Tom Miles coming in saying, does number 33 Aaron Jones get over 100 yards rushing this weekend? It is actually my guarantee. That is my guarantee heading into this week, is that number 33 Aaron Jones will go for 150 yards total, 2 touchdowns. I think he's going to do it, man. I think this revenge game is going to really, really happen. And I think I can just see all the sad Packers fans after the game. It's going to be like, man, we should have kept Aaron Jones. Josh Jacobs only ran for 50 yards today, where Aaron Jones found the end zone twice, went for over 150 yards. So, wishful thinking there, maybe drinking a little too much purple Kool-Aid. But, yeah, I think AJ is going to have a big day. Blake Pearson saying, #Vikings, would trading for Lattimore be crazy? I don't know if it would be crazy. Lattimore's a great player. It's just, you talk about his contract, and just his injury history over the past couple of years. It is a big reason why I would be against it. Now, if it's for a 6th, 7th round pick, maybe, but you just don't want to have to deal with the cap hit of $31.4 million in 2026, a $28.6 million cap hit. I guarantee you, even if Lattimore comes to the Vikings and he's great this year on that cap hit, we'll be talking about him next year and the year after as a potential cut candidate. So for me, probably only a 6th round pick. Jeremy Fowler said a 3rd round pick maybe, but I would probably be against on that. Skylar saying, should Minnesota go all in and trade for Hassan Reddick? I'm going to say no. And, Hassan Reddick's a good player, but I think the Vikings edge group's fine. I don't think you need to add anybody. I would rather add to the interior of the defensive line, maybe a guy like Jeffrey Simmons. But Hassan Reddick, he wants to get paid. Vikings aren't going to pay him. And, plus you got, guys like Patrick Jones stepping up. Even a guy like Dallas Turner who really hasn't done anything, hasn't played too much this season. You're hoping that he'll be good to go. Here's Shortland. He's getting some real reps, in the near future. But trading for an edge, I just don't think it would be, too smart for the Vikings. And Matt coming in saying, #Vikings, if the Vikings are 7-1 at the trade deadline, would you trade a 2025 first for Dexter Lawrence? 110%. I understand the Vikings only have 3 draft picks next year, but Dexter Lawrence is 26 years old. You'd be paying for a guy who is in his prime, and this would just add a superstar to a position of need for this football team. This would take this defense to, in my opinion, it is the best in the National Football League, but they know how to be talking about this defense potentially being one of the best of all time, because you would have stars at literally every position, like Lawrence, Van Ginkel, Jones and Grenard and Harrison Phillips on that line. Then you got Cashman and Payson at the linebacker spot. And then just how good the secondary's been playing this year. Yeah, 100%. I think it would take more, though. I think it would probably take a first and a future 3rd. And I also just don't think the Giants would be willing to trade for him. But, Mac, I appreciate you getting that question in there. But Blake Pearson coming in saying, are the Vikings contenders or pretenders? Blake, I got some great news for you. I think they are contenders. I think, if you just look at the process over the last 3 weeks, not just the results, it's been great. They've looked good on film, and they haven't really had, too much luck plays. I consider fluky turnovers, like the Will Levis pick 6 to the Bears. That was just the Bears getting lucky. Or block punts, the Vikings have had one of them. Or punt returns, kick returns. I think those are lucky plays. But, overall, I just think the Vikings have been just kicking the shit out of teams, just being the better football team, out there any given week. So, no doubt, I think they're contenders, Blake. Wazazy coming in saying, is our O-line back to 100%? Yeah, this should be. Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill are all good after that game. So, no concerns there. They both did go down, but, they should be all good. Not in the injury report today. So, no real concerns for that offensive line. Appreciate you, Wazazy, getting that question in there. Tom Wiles, though, last question, saying, do you think Gilmore will get a pick six this weekend? Obviously I gotta say yes to this, Tom Wiles. I hope so, man. I really do hope so. Like, Stephon Gilmore's been fantastic this year for the Vikes. It's not like I was concerned about him maybe losing a step, but him being older, it was definitely a possibility. And it's how smart he is as a football player. He's great in trail coverage. Using his safety help, using the sidelines as a help. Like, even though he's not the same athlete that he once was winning depoys in New England, like, he is still a very, very effective football player. So we'll wrap up today's show with this. Week 4 in Lambeau Field. Predict the score for me down below. Vikings versus Packers. I got 27-17. You guys let me know down below. Also, give me a follow on Twitter. That's the handle right there, at Pat Sieps. See you guys next time. As always, go Vikes. Alrighty. Want the Vikes to beat the Packers. Type skull. I'm going to put a minute shot clock on here, though. If we don't get a super chat in the next minute, we'll sign off today's live show. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really good audience. Had over 1,500 people tune in, which is awesome. So thank you guys so much. Really, really cool stuff when I see you guys come out and support our weekly live shows. Obviously, I know our watch parties do a lot bigger audience and everything. But I appreciate the guys that tune in during the week and just want to hear me talk about this football team. So Thomas Mess, Wazazy, Zam, Tom Wiles, Garrett Russborough, Young Good saying, I always watch Pat. Well, I appreciate you, Young Good. Shout out to you. But seriously, like, the guys who tune in to our weekly live shows, you guys are the real ones here on the channel. So appreciate you. But Jared saying Jones going to Lambeau leap 3 times on y'all. I hope so, man. I hope so. Ricks2 talking noise. Hey, Ricks2, you better tune in for our post-game show this Sunday, man. But we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Skol Vikes.